In a weak quarterback class, Carson Beck can soar up NFL draft boards with a big performance versus Indiana.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. I'm an NFL draft analyst with Bleacher Report. That's my guy, Keith Sanchez. He's the director of scouting with the Draft Network in 2019, national champion with the LSU Tigers. And as always, thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Guys, it's time to preview the national championship game, the final game of the 2025 college football season, Indiana versus Miami. We'll get into the offensive prospects to watch, Fernando Mendoza, Carson Beck, Elijah Sarratt. The defensive prospects to watch, Rueben Bane Jr., Mikhail Kamara, D'Angelo Pons, and then those key matchups that can determine this final big game for all the marbles, all the chips on the table. But before that, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Keith, when you think about offensive prospects to watch, Fernando Mendoza, who are we starting with? Fernando Mendoza or Carson Beck?
Let's start with Beck. Let's start with Carson Beck and the narrative and the conversation and where he could potentially place himself, right? We're talking about a young man, and I said this already, right? That everybody was wondering if he was going to continue college football after the 2024 season, right? You know,
yep.
all the struggles he went in, and now leading Miami to a national championship. Just seeing what the moment looks like for him, right? Will it be too big for him? Will he be calm? Will he be collected? Also, we've seen something that we've been waiting to see from Carson Beck, and that was putting the game on his shoulders, right? Putting the team on his shoulders and leading his team to victory. Because even going back to Georgia, people thought that he could have been potentially a product of his environment. And I'll go back even to DP when we first learned that Carson Beck transferred to Miami. We said this would be interesting because he's not going to have one of the best O-lines. He's not going to have a dominant run game. He's not going to have a dominant defense. What we thought Georgia would be at the time, right? Georgia wasn't that neither. At the time, it was like, okay, at Miami, he's going to have to freelance a little bit. He's going to have to use his mobility. He's going to have to be creative. And we've seen the creative Carson Beck outside of a 3-game stretch, DP. Carson Beck has thrown majority of his touchdowns and had minimal interception. I think it was a 3-game stretch in the middle of the season. And if you look at those 3 games, that was when he didn't play well. But outside of that, the other 12 to 13 games that he's played this year, he's played really good football. He's played football that is comparable to the 2023 season. When entering 2024, people thought that he was a first-round pick. So you go off as a national champion, and you're the reason why your team won. NFL teams are going to start having different discussions about, hey, this guy will be here in the 3rd or 4th to should we do the Derek Carr range and draft him at the very top of the 2nd round and potentially have a franchise quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, I was watching the film of that game, against Ole Miss, and it's that last drive, man. Like he hit not just using his legs, the touchdown, getting them down there, making the right reads, making the right throws, being accurate, layering the football, the things that he always was capable of doing. You know what I mean? And again, like a lot of people people blamed him for what went down in Georgia. Newsflash, Georgia's offense still isn't good. Like, you know what I mean? From a it can win you games. Like Gunnar Stockton can run, and us. You still don't use your tight ends like you're supposed to. You still don't use your receivers like you're supposed to. You can run the football, but they still don't actually maximize their pass catchers. Where you look at what they've done in Miami, like I said, coming in, Keith, we were definitely. I remember that episode. We were definitely a little concerned, and there was a lot of pressure because what we were expecting was what Cam Ward went through. They didn't run the ball enough. The defense was bad last year. We didn't foresee the elevation from like Keontae Scott and that young secondary and Jacoby Thomas and everything. And then you get the healthy Rueben Bane, because last year he was dealing with an ankle injury all year. Healthy Rueben Bane, Akeem Messidor, Moton on the interior defensive line. That offensive line being really good and led by Francis Mauigoa, right? Like things shaped out for Miami. So Carson Beck, like this right here, And especially, I think for him, he probably goes in this like, man, this will be the third year that the SEC hasn't won a national championship game, and I left a big SEC powerhouse. And if I walk out of here with a national championship, like that's a double entendre for him. It's like I'm a champion. I raise my draft stock, but I kind of stick it to the old team. You know what I mean? To the team that truly kind of gave up on me or was ready to move on the Gunner Stockton. I'm looking forward to see how he plays in this game because he's not a young quarterback. I don't think he should be struggling.
Not only that, DP, if you think about it, he beat the team that beat Georgia, right? Like Ole Miss. Ole Miss beat Georgia, right? To eliminate them from the playoffs. And then the very next week he's faced against Georgia. And his team didn't just win, he helped beat them, right? Like he wasn't just a part of the process. Yeah, he was the process at some moment. So I'm right there with you. To continue with these offensive prospects, DP, I'm gonna go back to the guy that we continue to talk about, Fernando Mendoza, right? And I said it again. He has to play well, DP, because people are waiting to take him and unseat him.
They're waiting for that gotcha moment, Keith.
Yeah,
they're looking for that gotcha
moment. So I'm interested to see, because the storyline or narrative that's not getting discussed a whole lot is that this young man is from Miami, right? And we've been waiting for a gotcha moment / a Mendoza situation to where something gets to him, right? And we thought it may be the pressure of being the number one team in the country. That didn't, that's not the case. We thought it may be facing Ohio State. We thought it may be facing Oregon, right? We thought it may be actual blitz pressures on the football field, right? That didn't work. We'll see if it's the pressure of being home, right? And if the young man is from Miami, right? He's playing at home. Did he want to go to Miami? Did he see himself being a Miami Hurricane? Like, is this a redemption story for him that we're not discussing? And he's like, you know what? I may want to stick it to them, and maybe that's what gets him potentially over the top. And I'm not predicting anything or projecting. I'm just saying that I'm watching to just see how he handles that, because that's a lot, man. Like you're in town school, University of Miami. You're from the city of Miami. You're playing for Indiana. You're the number one quarterback prospect, and you're playing in
families,
Miami.
friends going to be
you're
there.
Playing
like,
in Miami against Miami, and you're from Miami, right? Like that's 100%. The trifecta.
You're gonna have to hear your hometown crowd boo you because you're on a different team. That's a different feel. You know what I mean? And I'm with you, because like you want to see, okay, does he come out a little hot, a little high, like a little high strung? You know what I mean? Like we haven't seen him show we haven't really seen him show much emotion on the football field
at all.
You know what I mean?
He's been emotionally and it didn't matter if he got a hit stick to the face, right? Against Ohio State, he still just came back out. He just
got up, like, let me go get checked out. I'll be back. Don't worry. You know what I mean? And he came back in and slung the big throws and touchdowns. And I think for him, I think what also like Keith was helped him stay calm is that even though his team gets a lot of praise, there's a lot of draft analysts that have been taking shots left and right at this kid. Oh, he's a game manager. He's not worthy of the first overall pick. You got people, I'm not going to name names. You got people saying, hey, the Raiders should trade out of the first overall pick and draft something else and look for the quarterback next year. And I'm like, and following that is how you stay a bad team.
Well, not only that, DP, we every class, I'm gonna say this real quick before we transition. Every class is not created the same, right? And we like it, and we have to understand that the Caleb Williams and Drake Mays, right? And if you want to throw Jaden Daniels in there, and then a couple other quarterbacks here and there, right? Like they're not the norm, right? As far as coming out and they check every single box, right? There are the years where you have, and I thought Cam Ward was talented, but you have a Cam Ward, right? Tennessee Titans fans are excited about what Cam Ward can do. They just want to put the pieces around him, right? You think about the Jared Goff year, right? To where Jared Goff was the number one overall pick, and he wasn't in the same bracket with a Trevor Lawrence or a Caleb Williams, right? Coming out of the draft. So every quarterback class isn't created the same. Every number one quarterback is not equal to number one quarterback, but doesn't mean you shouldn't take a a quarterback that high if he's played really good football, because Trevor Lawrence was Trevor Lawrence coming out of college. Jared Goff was Jared Goff, but to this point, who has had the better pro career? Now think about
Yeah.
that part, right? Who's had the better pro career? So I think that is more what needs to be driving the conversation than just, oh, okay, well, X, Y, and Z, he may not be good enough. But DP, let's do this, man. Let's transition to these defensive prospects. That's why I'm excited. I'm excited to see what the defense does, right? Let's transition to these defensive prospects to watch from this national championship matchup, Miami versus Indiana, coming up next.
Ever wish to become a pro QB, getting drafted first overall? Well, now you can. There's a mobile game just for you called Ultimate QB Football Legend. In this game, you step into the cleats of a number one draft pick quarterback, and it's your job to lead your team to greatness and to help turn a failing franchise into a dynasty. Are you calm, cool, and collected under pressure? You play with poise in the pocket when the offensive line doesn't block well? Well, prove it. Ultimate QB is totally free, has no ads, and works 100% offline, perfect for when you want to sneak in a quick game or two. Just head over to ultimate-qb.com. That's ultimate-qb.com, or search for Ultimate QB in your app store, and we have something special just for you guys. Use the promo code LOCKEDON in all caps in the game store to get a free boost to the start at the start of your career. Ultimate QB Football Legend, QB1 is your legacy. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one. Between busy workdays, cold winter nights, and packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference. And that's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-proportioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated number one by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. And it's easy to see why. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering our listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen of the day. And to our everydayers, are you not subscribed to the Everydayer Club? Man, what are you waiting for? I'm going to tell you why you should do it. And it's simple. You love talking ball with me and Keith. You love hearing us talk about the NFL Draft and players and prospects. Well, you can talk to us about the same things in our invite members-only Discord server, where if you subscribe and become an everydayer to the Everydayer Club, you get to ask us questions in real time. Guys, you could jump into the Discord channel. If you got player comps that's rolling through your mind, you're like, man, I wonder how DP and Keith feel. You don't have to wonder. Just jump in and ask. If you have a mock draft you want us to go over and grade, we'll do that for you as well. If you just want to talk about player rankings, whatever the case may be, guys, I promise you, you get access to us that you can just chop it up, talk shop, talk ball. All you have to do is go to LockedOnNFLDraft.supercast.com and subscribe. Defensive prospects to watching the national championship game. Miami hosting, it's a home game, hosting Indiana, which is crazy to think about, right? I think defensively, Keith, I go to the safeties for Indiana. Mari Farrell, who he's actually announced that he's going back to school for one more year. After the year he's had the ball production, I'm like, man, I figured you'd come out, you know what I mean, and go pro. But I want to get another year to his belt. Kurt Signetti recruited one of his own back. But that combination of Mari Farrell and Lewis Moore, and for me, it's with Carson Beck, and it's just the way that they use Malachi Toney, especially in the middle of the field. Well, these two guys hover and they cap that defense. They don't give you a lot down the field, a lot of explosive plays. And what they do is they force you to take a lot of underneath short to intermediate stuff. And this, again, Carson Beck being a veteran quarterback, he's his third year as a starter, started over 25 games at this point as a starter for Carson Beck. You should have seen it all and done it all. So you've been in the college football playoffs, you've been in SEC championship games. Now you're back in the college football and you're in the national championship game yourself. I think he was in the national championship game as a freshman as well. So it's not like he hasn't been in an environment. Keith, I think for me, it's just, hey, watching these safeties, Lewis Moore, the one in particular, because when they roll down into robber coverage, can he time it right to make, because Carson Beck will get tunnel vision for Malachi Toney at times. And if he gets tunnel vision for Toney and they got that deep crosser and different stuff like that, and you're seeing too high, don't believe, and you believe it's too high, and then they rotate into cover one, and you get that robber technique. And this Lewis Moore, we saw what he did to Julian Sand, jumping that middle of the field route, taking that route from him. We've seen those guys be able to do that. Lewis Moore is a safety that can help himself a lot in this game, but also not just from a draft stock standpoint, but help his team take the ball away and give it back to Fernando.
Yeah, I agree with that, right? You have to watch out for the Indiana DBs, right? Like their scheme has been much talked about, how it confuses quarterbacks. It puts them in complex situations. Like you said, what you see pre-snap is not potentially what it's going to be post-snap. So good luck with that.
Smoke and mirrors, right? Baby. Smoke and mirrors.
Yep. And so I look at this. I'm gonna go with the guys up front. I'm gonna go with Rueben Bane and Akeem Mesidor. And the reason being is that I think this is the best duo, right? Because we talked about Oregon's duo, right, with Mateo Ugalele and then the young man that plays opposite of him, right? And then even Ohio State, right, is talk about Kenyatta Jackson and I think it's Caden Curry that plays at the other edge rusher position. The best way I could say this is that ain't this, right? Those combinations at Oregon and Ohio State is not as good as the combination that's at Miami, right? Rueben Bane, and Akeem Mesidor, in my opinion, they're the best of that trio of 1-2 punches that I talked about. And so will this finally be the kind of breaking point, right? Like for this offensive line to where it's like, you know what, they're dominant, right? Like they physically won this football game. We've seen them against Texas A&M, right? And they physically won that football game. We've seen them against Ohio State, right? Where they shake, rattled, and rolled and messed up people's process. So I'm looking like, can they win this football game? I like that's the true question. Can they be dominant enough to win this football game? I thought, even Ole Miss, I thought that they were disruptive to what Ole Miss thought they can and can't do from a game plan standpoint enough to where they got Ole Miss kind of out of their game for, I would say, 3.5 quarters, right? I mean, Ole Miss had the big touchdown run, and then the middle 2 quarters were kind of, touch and go a little bit, right? Like you were just hoping that Ole Miss made another stop and that their field goal kicker can keep them in the game. But Rueben Bane and Akeem Mesidor, they mess with game plans, and then when they're on the field, they can disrupt plays also. So those two guys, DP, I think they're the key to the game, because if they could be disruptive, then it'll be very interesting to see what happens.
No, 100%. I think the weak part of that in Indiana, the Indiana offensive line is the right side. Khalil Benson, the right tackle, who was much maligned when he was at Colorado last year, played right tackle. They played him at guard, and he got beat a lot in front of Shedeur Sanders. And he's been more solid this year for Indiana. And I tweeted that out. I'm like, man, do not leave him one-on-one with Rueben Bane. You're going to have to chip, double, leave a tight end in. I don't want to see, I think he's 67. I don't want to see 67 one-on-one with number 4. I've seen more talented, more physically gifted tackles get dismantled by number 4. Don't want to see that. Not for granted, now that's the right tackle, so Fernando can, he can see it and move and things like that. But I don't want to leave that the chance. I want to go just automatically double right out the gate. We're doubling number 4. That's the game plan, right? But you got to make sure, and that I think that that kind of in the key matchup situation too is like Carter Smith. I didn't get a chance to mention him in the first segment, but Carter Smith, the left tackle for Indiana, I think he's been pitching a shutout in the playoffs. Hasn't given up any sacks. He gives up very few pressures. I kind of feel like he might project better as a guard potentially, or right tackle, not so much a left tackle in the NFL. But his tape has been good. He's been stellar, and then you get that matchup with him in the Akeem Mesidor. So definitely, how that tandem. Whether it's, hey, we rushing side by side like they like to do a lot of times with the twists and stunts and stuff like that, or we try to collapse from opposite sides and give Fernando no way to go. And then you got to step up into the defensive tackle, Moten, who knows how to collapse the pocket and push the pocket from the interior defensive line spot. They might blitz the linebacker, Mohamed Toure, who's an explosive downhill guy. Crazy enough, he's coming off two ACL tears. But this is a guy I'm looking forward to seeing, like, this run game. Like, he's one of those hair on fire, high energy, like high motor defenders. Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Because I was really high on him.
Yeah,
like,
I remember
that. My last year.
Yeah, and I think he tore his ACL in training camp, right?
Yep. He tore his ACL before the 2024 season, missed that whole season, I remember correctly, then transferred in the offseason, like last offseason or last year to Miami. And he brings an attitude to that second level, man. He's a physical dude. He hits. There's nobody he's afraid of throwing that shoulder into. And you're going to have to approach Kalen Black and Roman Hemby that way. The way Sonny Styles played it. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not worried. Like, yo, if I hit this alley, it's going to be a car crash. And you got to be okay with that. Put your seatbelt on and hold on tight because it's about to be a head-on collision. And Muhammad Toure is one of those defenders on that second level of that Miami defense that could really muddy things up in the run game for Indiana. And then you start blitzing them. You start getting him free runs at the quarterback. And there's let me pull up his name real quick. There's a linebacker in this game from Miami. Let me see, I'm pronouncing it correctly. Wesley Basante. Yeah. Last year in 2024, when they played, everybody remember the controversial late night game, on the road, Miami, Cam Ward versus Fernando and Cal, and it was a hit where Wesley hit. I think it would have been targeting, but I don't think they called it targeting, but it should have been a targeting call where he basically laid out Fernando. I think Fernando was sliding or whatever, but he hit he pretty nice little kill shot. I expect Fernando to remember that play. You know what I mean? And I expect you might see some Omar Cooper, maybe Kalen Black out the back. They might try to Tom Brady. What was it? Tom Brady, Pittsburgh Steelers. Well, I think the safety was like talking trash for the game. And Tom was like, okay, cool. We're talking to you all game. I would not be surprised if Basante gets a lot of targets in this game. You better be ready to cover. You better be ready to cover and be ready to run to tackle. Because I expect that. You think Kurt Signetti didn't watch that and like, you know what? I got my guys back. Don't worry. We number 31, we looking for you. We looking for you out here when we rate the huddle. We're gonna find you. We're gonna exploit you.
Yeah, well, DP, let's keep this conversation going and flowing, man. Next up, we have the key matchups, right? Picking these draft prospects versus draft prospect. What are going to be the key matchups that's going to determine who will be the national champions of college football? Miami versus Indiana. We'll talk about that coming up next.
The NFL postseason is in full swing, and there's nothing like being at the game. The crowd noise, the energy, and cheering alongside other fans. Watching at home is great, but being in the stadium, man, it just hits different. The frustrating part has always been getting tickets, waiting in queues, dealing with logins, and watching prices change right at checkout. That's why the Game Time app gives the advantage back to fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing NFL tickets and experiences in just a few taps. Knowing that tickets are backed by the Game Time guarantee gives you a peace of mind. So take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL. That's Locked On NFL, LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today and get back to being there live. The divisional round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts that you can apply to the bets you like most. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. You make your picks, then apply the profit boost to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get and continue to roll. So visit FanDuel, an official sports book partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Again, visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your Profit Boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot for being our everydayers. Key matchups to watch, Keith. What key matchup, prospect to prospect, player versus defense, offense, scheme? What are you looking for in terms of key matchups that can determine who wins or loses this game?
Yeah. When was this? We discussed run game. I can't remember what game it was, and it was the run game for Miami, but I'm gonna go back to it. You know what? We talked about Ole Miss, right? Miami's run game versus Ole Miss. Will they be able to hold up? I have the same exact conversation for Indiana, right? Miami's run game. We talk about offensive prospects like Francis Mauigoa. We talk about Mark Fletcher, who you led the show off, previewing. This big back going downhill. He should be one of the better backs that Indiana has faced also, right? In a different style of back. Because even when I think about Ohio State's back, they have one big running back, right? And I think about who else they faced. Alabama run game was not
they
it.
Don't have one. They don't have one.
So I look at Miami's run game and those guys in the trenches, and can they wear down Indiana's front, right? Can they take it to them? Because I think that started to happen in the Ole Miss game. I thought that's when Miami started to take control, when they started ripping those gains off. It looked like an 8 chunk here, a 10-yard chunk there, or a 12-yard chunk there. And it's like, okay, Miami looks like they're starting to control this football game, right? So I'm looking at Indiana in the trenches, like, will a Mikhail Kamara be able to hold up, right? Like, can you hold up? And it's not about first quarter and second quarter. It's about third quarter, right? It's about the fourth quarter. Can you hold up? And if Miami gets a lead, then they're like, you know what? We're about to run the air out of the football. Can you respond? So I'm looking at those two draft prospects, talking about Francis Mauigoa, Mark Fletcher versus Indiana, when I'm talking about Mikhail Kamara, and then talking about the trenches and how they converse the run game.
Yeah, that's gonna be big, because it's a situation, like you said. I remember watching the film of that Miami Ole Miss game, and you could definitely tell that was a key for them in the second half. It was like, we're gonna run the ball too. Like, we're gonna be balanced. We're gonna throw it. We're gonna run it, but we're gonna make you have to tackle and play physical for 4 quarters. And it's crazy, that was an ACC team telling the SEC team, like, you're gonna have to play physical all 4 quarters. And to watch Mark Fletcher. He's one. I mean, it's an old cliche, but like it fits. He just got stronger as the game went on. Like, he just got more physical, more aggressive. Like, he's stiff arming guys. He's fighting through contact, and it's those type of runs you don't want, because those runs energize the offense. When you see your running back in the team, you see your running back. Everybody's like, yeah, like, you know what I mean. Especially if you hit like a little bit of a low offensively, where it's like, hey, you know what, our energy ain't right. Like, this game could get out of hand if we don't score here. And it's like, next thing you know, Mark Fletcher pops a 15-yarder, but to get that 15-yarder, he broke 4 tackles. Now the defense is hyped. The offensive line's like, you know what? We can do this again. You know what I mean? Carson Beck was like, if we do that again, I can get some more advantageous coverage windows, and we can attack them down the field. And you just don't want to allow that to happen, Keith. So 100%, I'm with you on that. A key matchup I'm looking for is in the slot, right? You got Devin Boykin. He's a redshirt senior safety, nickel hybrid, 5'10", 195, number 12 for Indiana. Guy who played good football this year against Malachi Toney. I think that's a key matchup right there, because they, like I said, they like to go with Boykin, Lewis Moore, and Amari Farrell. So you go kind of that 3 safety set, and that third safety plays in the nickel. And being able to limit what Malachi Toney can do in this game is going to be paramount. Because what you're going to have to do is force Carson Beck to throw to CJ Daniels, and then force Carson Beck to also throw to Keelan Marion, who I was watching film on him. Kick and play, 6 foot 195. I'm gonna say this name because he was drafted last year. He reminded me a little bit of Matthew Golden, just not as. I think Matthew is more fluid and more explosive, a little bit more explosive. But movements, like the way they run their routes and set stuff up and things like that, he reminds me of him. And this is a guy, especially because of the fact that Indiana will play some press bail and stuff like that, and that side saddle bail technique. Watching him against Ole Miss, there was a couple times like he just ran straight by the Ole Miss corners. And I'm like, Carson, if you look that direction, like that's a touchdown. That's 7. You know what I mean? Like you put that out there, that's a touchdown. He beat him multiple times on those type of routes. He did find them on the kind of a broken play, busted coverage, wide open down on this first deep ball, but he was able to get open. He runs good routes in terms of Keelan Marion. So like forcing Carson Beck to target CJ Daniels and Keelan Marion, like between the two, you want them to get like 15 targets. You want to limit because Malachi Toney, because even in that game against Ole Miss, he took a tunnel screen for a touchdown, like through the middle, like literally through the middle of the defense. And I was just like, this dude is such a problem. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's like, what do you do with him? Like, you know what I mean? The way that they use him, how twitchy and explosive he is, the route running, the elusiveness is like, how do you handle him? So it's like, I expect Lewis special, and that's why I think the situation with with Keelan could be beneficial for Beck, and then Beck needs to come off of Malachi. I expect them to try and funnel Malachi to the strength of their defense, funnel him in the middle of the field, funnel him to the safeties, and if they do that, you get that one-on-one. If they run cover one robber, take the deep shot, go one-on-one with it, throw it down there to CJ Daniels, let him see if he can make the play over. Let's see, CJ Daniels like 6'3", I think. Let's see if he can make the play over the top of D'Angelo Pons. You get Keelan Marion one-on-one, and they're playing that side set, or they're playing press bail. Yeah, like this was a guy, he got even with them Ole Miss DBs, and if they didn't turn around quick enough, he just stride past them. Do the same thing in this game, and this time, take the deep shot. Force them out of some of their coverage shells, force them from being comfortable, and I think that's going to be a big-time situation. That, and then, of course, the Elijah Sarratt in the slot, and him and Keontae Scott. Like, when they get in there at that 30, 25-yard line, Keith, you know that slot fade is somewhere hovering for Indiana. They're like, you know what? Let's motion down Elijah. You know what I mean? Let's motion Elijah down. And Keontae Scott's, I think, like 6 foot 195 himself, or 6'1", somewhere in there. And I think he's, weirdly enough, Keith, I think he's more of a safety hybrid than a true nickel in terms of like coverage. I think he's better attacking the line of scrimmage, run defense, blitzing, zone guy. If you get that one-on-one matchup with him in man coverage, I think Indiana's going to go at it.
Yep, and by right, they should. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Come and join the conversation. Come and join the conversation again on Monday on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.